the veterans coming home from war is one of the most important issues of our time. You see these people, and I became very attached to all of the characters in the movie, and really started to feel for what they're going through and what they feel as they come home from war. And so for me to work on this film and to make this film, it filled in so much. I mean, I've experienced some things in my life with tragedy and in the mountains, and of course the veterans saw that on a scale that I can't even comprehend, losing friends and losing parts of their bodies and so much. So it's one of those projects that you dream about for an entire career and hope for a chance to work on something like this. Well, there are organizations that are working with veterans who come home from war. And in this case, it was an organization that was World Team Sports and No Barriers are two organizations. No Barriers is Eric Weinmeier, the Blind Climbers organization. And this expedition came out of a 10-year anniversary of Eric Weinmeier's Everest climb. And as a team, we were looking for something meaningful to do because the mountains had given us so much. And that climb with Eric had really defined our careers and helped us along. And so 10 years later, it felt like we should do something meaningful and try to give back somehow. That veterans tend to be fairly closed. They don't want to talk about what happened. And as we went along, we got to know them a little bit, and we gained some trust. And they heard our stories as we heard their stories. And they heard about climbing Everest and avalanches and the things that happen. And then we heard about getting blown up and losing friends. And so as time went by, we developed that trust. And of course, the mountain itself was a very difficult climb. And so that, it was like a mission in combat maybe, where you had some goal to accomplish and really had to work for it. And so in that process, we got to know them better. And then after the film, after we climbed the mountain, that's when the magical thing that happens only rarely in a filmmaker's career maybe is you get a mentor who's just top-notch. And in this case, it was Don Hahn. And I showed him the trailer because we'd been acquainted through a film festival. And he asked if he could become involved. And that was music to my ears because we didn't have the resources to really, or the creativity and the amazing things like Chris Bacon's music and Gary Rizzo to do the sound mix and at Skywalker, and the things that, as a filmmaker from Colorado, honestly, it's a dream. A mountain is a beautiful metaphor for story because you have an approach, and then you have a steep part in the middle where you might get an action piece, and then you have the summit, which is another subtly different action piece. But and sometimes as a documentary filmmaker, you really just, like, it was the night before we were about to go up, and we're really thinking about, like, putting our boots on and really, because, you know, all of us that are climbing, there were two of us shooting, we had to really be thinking about, okay, we're going to climb this mountain also. And then Rizzo, the woman who decided not to go on the climb, calls us all into the tent. And so it's sort of one of those balancing acts. What do we do? Okay, I've got to get ready, but this is going to be important because she's probably going to say she's not going to go. And I kind of had a sense of that because she'd been sick the night before. And so that was one of those moments. And even when Steve struggles on the climb, you see him just really, really struggle. And you can feel that and that visceral kind of feeling that comes with it. And so, and then building back in time, just different moments that happened along the way where Steve broke down and just talks about staring into a black abyss. And those moments that just, each time one of those happens, it's like, okay, this is something that really matters because it's demonstrating what I really wanted to accomplish with this. But when you do a mountain climb, we didn't know going into that day and that night what was going to happen and whether or not any of us would make it to the top. So it keeps it kind of exciting right to the end.